And you are very welcome. This is The Beautiful Truth with Fintan Dunn. Thanks for joining me, folks. Good to be here with you, and good to be back on air after some changes. More on that later. But first, I would like to get to the meat of the matter and why we're here today. And before I go any further, let me warn you that I'm about to show you a photograph of not only a rather nasty person, but a disappointed and ugly nasty person. So don't say you didn't get warned. Here it comes. Oh dear. That is a very disappointed former head of the CIA there, having just heard the news that not only has he lost his security clearance revoked by President Trump, but that the T-trolley has just run in to his Lamborghini. He's a very disappointed dude. And he's not the only disappointed person. There are likely to be some other disappointed people joining him soon, having their security clearances revoked. Now you might say, yes, we know all about that. That's just infighting Trump stuff. I mean, who cares? Well, okay. Maybe you need to back right up and watch some previous videos, such as how Donald trumped the New World Order. You can Google that and find out about the battle which has been going on between nationalists and globalists in the United States, and the globalists, which I suppose were comprehensively represented by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, and the Bushes being on one side of that, and Donald Trump on the other side of it. Now, if we go back a little further in time, we can take ourselves back to around the time of the election when Trump was elected. In the year leading up to that, he made a number of references to 9/11. He wasn't afraid to touch the issue. He said, first of all, the original 9/11 investigation is a total mess and has to be reopened. He also said, he complained that the World Trade Center came down during the reign of George Bush, saying that's not very safe. And he also questioned why the administration didn't take legal means against Saudi Arabia. Where 19 of the hijackers from Saudi Arabia, he questioned. Americans deserve answers, and I will definitely request a new investigation so this horrible tragedy never happens again. And of course, he hasn't been held to that particular promise, and the media are prepared to just discard that as being, he was just playing to the Alex Jones mob, hoping to pick up some votes there. Well, of course he was doing that, yes, but that's not the only reason he's talking about 9/11. Now, why all that gets interesting is that what we're seeing playing out with Brennan and Clapper and Stroke and Comey and all of the other reprobates is that Trump is now thumbing his nose completely at them. He's reminding them that they are now powerless. He's pointing out to everybody else that they're powerless. And he's hammering home his own triumph. This has been going on since he met with Putin, when he had the audacity to allow them to go apoplectic in the background and yet at the same time persevere and just push ahead with his own agenda. And that agenda intersects with the 9/11 issue. You can get a lot more on this at fintandunn.com/911dejavu.com/. A lot of my websites, I'm just going to consolidate into fintandunn.com, followed by the website name. And I'll maintain the fintandunn.com. Break for News will be one of those as well. So you can get the backstory on this and how all of this ties back into the Bushes in particular on this series of audios. 911dejavu.com, fintandunn.com/911dejavu.com. And I would recommend in particular you take a look at 9/11 and the Fourth Reich Phoenix, and also how they pulled off 9/11. So this examines in great detail the links between 9/11 perpetrators and the Bush clan, the Bush crime mob, the Bush fascist alliance, and George H.W. Bush Sr., the unseen dictator of the United States, for as long as they were in power, and that's been some run up until their latest incarnation in the form of Hillary Clinton was overturned by Trump. So those issues of Bush and the Bushes and their connections to 9/11, with George Bush Sr. in place, with George Bush Jr., I should say, in place on 9/11, making sure that a Bush was in the Oval Office when the operation would go down, you see. And we had other undesirables such as Rumsfeld and Cheney, who go back a long way with each other. Just Google Rumsfeld and Cheney's dirty little spy secret. It's an article I wrote about them and their background and past. So a lot of key players in place. And how that all hooks back in is events which took place not too long ago in Saudi Arabia, when over 200, and that would later go on to be far more than 200, it would go on to be 400 and even 500, some claimed, arrested in a massive corruption scandal. And Saudi Arabia questioning, this is the 9th of November 2017, questioning princes, ministers and a billionaire business tycoon among the dozens arrested as Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman consolidates power. This was presented in Western media as being, well, of course, probably there was some corruption there, okay, but this is just him consolidating power and making sure that anyone who's a threat is taken out. Well, it's certainly that, all right. And what makes it really interesting is how those events on the 9th of November last year tie in to a visit by Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, and the Saudi Crown Prince, according to this Mail Online article, was claiming afterwards that Jared Kushner gave him CIA intelligence about other Saudis, saying, here are your enemies, days before the corruption crackdown. In other words, that Jared Kushner flew in, which we know he did, this has been reported, he flew in to discuss issues of terrorism financing in the region. Yeah, how about like terrorism financing as in financing the 9/11 terrorists? That kind of financing. Could there be any connection between Jared Kushner's mission to discuss issues of terrorism financing and what you're reading about here in the Mail, which was that he handed over transcripts, there's Jared, handed over transcripts, CIA transcripts, which he had gotten hold of through briefings, which indicated which individuals were plotting against MBS, who you see here on the left, Mohammed bin Salman, the new ruler of Saudi Arabia. So a visit which took place resulted in, according to this Mail article, resulted in MBS was bragging that he and Jared sat up until 4 a.m. discussing things, and Jared brought him the list. They literally laid out the future map of the entire region. That's why they stayed up until the early hours of the morning from the afternoon before. The intelligence was said to have come from US wiretaps on conversations between Arab Royal hotels in London, in major US cities, and even on yachts docked close to Monte Carlo. Now, and that just shows you the hand of Trump all over what was to happen, which was this mass arrest of hundreds. And there were a number of very interesting figures arrested in that. Let's just get Bannon's reaction as he outlines how he perceived it to go down. He said that for all the elites in the world, the party of Davos guys are sitting there today gobsmacked, absolutely shocked. The largest financier in the Arab world, the Muslim world, is Prince Alwaleed. He's got stakes in just about every high-tech company. He's a huge partner of Rupert Murdoch. When he came to the United States in the 90s, he was actually a client of my firm as he got into Hollywood, he got into media. He owns a huge stake in Citicorp. People are stunned today. He was put under house arrest, put under arrest yesterday in this situation of what they call corruption, money laundering, etc. People are thinking this is directly tied to the financing of the Muslim Brotherhood. This whole thing about cleaning up Saudi Arabia to take care of this. You're going to see a lot of changes. This thing is far from over. You're at the top of the first inning. You're probably the first batter. Now, among those who were inquiring about Prince Alwaleed bin Talal, a billionaire, amongst those who were interested in his fate were, for example, Bill Gates, with whom he is in business. And the Murdoch family is in business. According to this New York Times report, the Murdoch family has tried to find out more about the situation of bin Talal and has been stymied. Known as the Warren Buffett of the Middle East. I'm only aware of what I've read in the press and I can't speculate, said Bill Gates. Prince Alwaleed has been an important partner in my foundation's work to ensure that kids around the world receive life-saving vaccinations. But neither the Murdochs nor Bill Gates, who aren't exactly poor or poorly connected, could get any information out about what was happening. And soon reports came out that torture and beatings, etc., were taking place among those who had been arrested. And who is among them? Only none other than Prince Bandar bin Sultan. Now, he's not the billionaire class like bin Talal, but this is a guy who's got connections to US intelligence, who's a former head of Saudi intelligence, and who's deeply embedded in the Bush clan. Deeply embedded in the Bush clan among those arrested. Former Saudi ambassador to Washington, confidant of former US President George W. Bush. That's putting it mildly to say he's confident. Here he is sitting with Bush Jr. That's cozy. Let's take a look on here on Wikipedia. Bandar has formed close relationships with several American presidents, notably George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush, giving the latter the affectionate and controversial nickname of, Bandar Bush. His particularly close relationship with the Bush family was highlighted in Michael Moore's documentary Fahrenheit 9/11. He was reportedly so close to George H.W. Bush that he was often described as a member of the former president's family. He advocated Saddam Hussein's overthrow in Iraq, encouraged military action against Iraq, and supported Dick Cheney's agenda for the new Middle East, which called for pro-democracy programs in both Syria and Iran. So this guy is absolutely deeply connected back to the Bush clan. There he is on the left there with Condoleezza Rice and George Bush Jr. So that's one interesting guy. Let's take a look at some more of his background. Now, as I say, he was head of Saudi intelligence at one point. He was also a Saudi envoy to Germany, which connected him, if you like, with the German power bloc, German intelligence, and the Franco-German, British, New World Order, Anglo-American nexus of intelligence agencies which operate across those countries. So that's Bandar Bush. And, you know, he has been involved in so much. He was involved in Iran-Contra. You can go to Wikipedia and Bandar Bush, go to Wikipedia. Check him out yourself. He's involved in everything dirty that these people were involved in, right? And not just in ancient history either. He's the architect of the disaster which Syria turned into, right? Let me just highlight that there now. According to a number of articles, Prince Bandar allegedly confronted Vladimir Putin in a bid to break the deadlock over Syria. This included security of Winter Olympics in Sochi if there is no accord. I can give you a guarantee, he said to Putin, right? To protect the Winter Olympics next year, the Chechen groups that threaten the security of the games are controlled by us. Putin then rejected the proposal, saying, "We know that you have supported Chechen terrorist groups for a decade, And that support, which you have frankly talked about just now, is completely incompatible with the common objectives of fighting global terrorism that you mentioned. So he's there threatening Putin with terrorism unless Putin gives way in Syria. So this is the kind of background this guy has. And yet he certainly was mentioned among those who were arrested in the wave of arrests, but didn't receive any huge prominence, I don't think, when you look at the background which he has. Now, that was and timed to perfection and implemented perfectly under the noses of US intelligence, by the way, under the noses of the New World Order intelligence system. This soft coup, a new kind of soft coup, orchestrated in an alliance between Trump and the Saudis, resulted in not only the arrest of Bandar Bush, but also the entire network which he represented, the intelligence and funding apparatus to which he was connected, and everybody connected to it. They have been taken out of the picture. And as I say, just like the situation with Hillary's failed coup in Turkey, which you can also check a video out there, I did on that as well. Again, it was an intelligence failure because those who are in alliance with the ones arrested never saw it coming. So a perfectly executed operation there to take out people who are at the Saudi end of the 9/11 issue. Now, since then, bin Talal, Bill Gates, Rupert Murdoch's buddy, has been released, saying how good it is to be back doing a little bit of work again, etc. But there's been no mention other than this: Saudi Prince Bandar bin Khalid commits suicide. Right now, Bandar bin Khalid is a different person than Bandar bin Sultan, okay, which is the guy we're talking about. But somehow this Al-Baghi, Pakistani TV item, has Bandar Bush's photograph there, misleadingly attached to a story about the prince committing suicide, a different guy committing suicide. Also, this is linked to traumatic footage of an incident in an airport where somebody throws themselves off of a high concourse down onto a lower floor, killing themselves in the process, and that this was supposedly London where this prince suicided himself. Later shown to be complete rubbish, because that is an airport terminal in Atlanta, not in London, where that action is taking place. It was entirely separate. So a very misleading kind of article, which in a way sort of marks a sort of confusing trail out, an end of trail for mention of Bandar Bush. Now, the reason that you're not hearing any mention is because, they've just gone quiet about him. It's worth just having a brief look at this guy, see who you're dealing with and who is no longer around.
Now, if you tell me that building this whole country and spending 350 billion out of 400 billion, that we had misused or corrupted with 50 billion, I'll tell you yes, but I'll take that any time. There are so many countries in the third world that have oil that are still 30 years behind. But more important, hey, who are you to tell me this? I mean, I see every time all the scandals here or in England or in Europe. What I'm trying to tell you is, so what? The way I answer...
So what? Well, so what? So now, that's led to this. So you see that in just the same way as the Saudi end of this network was taken out quite some time ago, back in November, you are now seeing Trump take out. These are not 9/11 players, apart from Brennan. If you know what I mean, these are not core 9/11 conspirators. These are apparatchiks. Brennan is core. But Comey's core. Clapper. Rule them out. Hayden, Rice, McCabe, screw them. But so that's where we're at, and now we're just waiting to see if any more shoes will drop on the US end of this, because what's happened there in Saudi Arabia. Could it be that there would be a night of the long knives in the United States as well? Well, it's a bit early to say that. Trump clearly feels he's in a strong enough position to put in some serious challenges there, and I think expecting positive outcomes in relation to the Mueller investigation, etc., and also electorally expecting a positive outcome there as well in order to cement his position. So it's coming down to about the only thing that could stop this is a bad result in November. But in terms of how the perception of those on the inside of this, within the Bush, or beg your pardon, the Trump group, and also, let's examine who is actually backing Trump on this in a way that I haven't previously. You can't get this far without backing from at least the US military, and I think possibly military and Navy support is there for Trump. Possibly Navy, but certainly military. Now that's not military-industrial complex. Military-industrial complex is a different thing than military. So military-industrial complex is interesting in making money, and the more the merrier. Military is interested in not having too many of people who are your buddies get killed for no good reason. You know what I mean? And military is a different ethos, and military is a different ball game. And it's clear that many people knew that 9/11 was an inside job and knew the kind of network which had been used to put it in place. And I think it's fairly obvious that that network is now being taken out. So interesting times. In order to have a successful cover-up of 9/11, I've said this before once, you need a good run at it, which is why they were confident that with Obama and Hillary Clinton to follow up George Bush, that gave them 3/8, 24, 22 years, something like that, of cover. And by that stage, they'll probably be running everything. But it hasn't worked out like that. And instead, that cover-up project has been derailed by Trump at the end of the Obama presidency and before Hillary Clinton could take over the reins of the cover-up. So that's left him quite a few years short, 8 years short by my calculation, because Hillary would have got 2 terms. And maybe that hasn't quite been long enough to get an effective, true and lasting cover-up of 9/11. If not, then these events in Saudi Arabia and the recent moves in the United States against the deep state apparatchiks in the United States, who are their counterparts and co-conspirators in 9/11, well, that may just indicate that we're going to hear more about 9/11, and we're probably going to get more information warfare to make sure that that particular issue doesn't resurrect itself out of the American psyche and come back to haunt these people. All right, that's it for this edition of The Beautiful Truth. I will be back with more, and I do hope that you can join me with that. But in the meantime, this has been Fintan Dunn reporting.